All right, hello, everyone. It's silverkyle, and welcome to my weekly update for February 19th, 2024. And this past week was not a good reading week at all. I had these crazy plans to read so much in the past week. I wanted to kind of catch up on everything for my schedule. I wanted to finish The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time Book 2. In one day. I was at page 300 and I had the following day off, and I wanted to read 350 pages, and I thought I could do it. I definitely am capable of doing that. It's been a while since I've read that much in one day, but I am capable of doing that. And I probably read like 20, 30 pages that day. I just got sidetracked with a bunch of other things. And now I'm reading the trade paperback. This is where I am right now. So that's the beginning of the book, and we go to the end. So I'm getting close to the end here. I've only read 170 pages in the past week. And normally I read about, on average, anywhere from the low point, probably 50 pages per day to about 100, and sometimes even a little bit more than 100, 120, 140 pages per day. And I read 170 pages. That's it in the past week. It happens every once in a while. And what's crazy is I'm enjoying The Great Hunt so much. This is now, with the last 170 pages that I read, this is exactly what I've been looking for and what made me enjoy The Eye of the World so much. So, and I know that because this is a reread, I know where this is heading. And I loved the ending of The Great Hunt when I read it like 20 years ago. So I know this is just going to keep getting better and better. But sometimes you just get distracted with a few things. Within the story, we're getting a lot more that's going on with Rand. We're seeing Perrin and Mat. Huron is a great character. We're getting more of Loyal, who's one of my favorite characters right here. So I'm enjoying everything. I like as well in this book, we're starting to see, because this is book 2 out of 14, we're starting to see some changes with Rand and Perrin. Not as much Mat. Mat is just very upset and angry, and he has his specific reasons as to why he's like that. But we're definitely seeing Perrin and Rand specifically changing quite a bit within this book. But it's still a very small bump. There's a lot of change, but it's still, I know that it's going to be more later on as well. So it's very nice that we're seeing this bump, and we know that it's going to continue going on afterwards. It's really well done in that sense. And Days Damar, I believe is how it's pronounced. It's this political game that people play in this one specific city that they're in, where everybody is kind of trying to get an upper hand and backstabbing people constantly for more power, more information. I like it quite a bit. It's very interesting, and Rand wants no part of this, but that basically means if you tell people that you're not playing the game, that you are very deeply entrenched in the game. So that's great to kind of, it's an interesting piece of storytelling that I quite enjoyed reading these past 170 pages or so. So I definitely do see myself. So that's all I read in the past week. What I plan to read in the next week is definitely finishing up The Great Hunt. And I do think I'll be able to do that because there's not much left there. And then I'll probably be starting, just as I said before, that I do want to start Dune and also Trials of the Empire. This is book 3 of The Empire of the Wolf. So finishing up that trilogy and starting Dune before I watch the movies. That part 2 for Dune is coming out quite soon. And like now it's February 19th and we have like 11, 12 days or something like that before the beginning of March. I see myself reading The Great Hunt. I don't see myself finishing up both of these books as well. I could see myself potentially finishing up Trials of the Empire because it's a little bit shorter than Dune is. So I could potentially see myself finishing up at least one of these books, but we'll see how that goes. So that's it for reading news. In terms of the channel itself, what I'll be doing is The Shining I'll be doing a review for. I'm hoping to do a review for The Great Hunt as well, so I can kind of be caught up at that point in time with all my reading reviews. And then I don't think it'll happen this week, but I probably will watch the 4K of The Shining, and then I might do a comparison of the book versus the movie, but that I think would be next week, not this week. So we'll kind of see how that goes. And then I would like to do, I don't think there's any omnibus that are coming out this week that I have on pre-order. So I'll probably end up doing an overview for one of the omnibus that I got in the last few months that I just didn't have time to do an overview for yet. Kind of like I've been doing every once in a while when I have nothing else to film. I kept, it's just by chance I wasn't doing a lot of overviews in the past few months, and so now I have a bunch of them that I got earlier when it just seemed like there was tons of omnibus coming out, and now I just can do them at my leisure at this point in time. So that's it for videos that I have in mind for. And okay, so what I've been up to in the past week, for partly why I didn't read it nearly as much, is obviously life happens, work happens, that kind of thing. But also, I've been watching Corner Gas of all TV shows. I just started watching it, and it's a Canadian sitcom that is definitely not for everyone. It helps if you are Canadian because there's a lot of Canadianisms in there, I guess. But and it's in Saskatchewan, based in Saskatchewan as well. But I find myself laughing often enough at some of the jokes that they have in there, and it's dumb. I know that it's dumb, but it's working, so I'm enjoying it. So I've been watching that, and I've also been finally back to writing to a degree. I started writing a fantasy novel that I would want. If I would continue, it would be a massive series. But this is book one, and I started it a few years ago. And what happened was I took part in, I think it was NaNoWriMo 2018 in November. And that month you have to write basically 50,000 words. And I achieved that. But it burned me out so much on writing. I was doing a good job beforehand writing, a little bit here and there, every week or 2 weeks. And then I got to NaNoWriMo and I had to write every day. And it just, I had to take like years off, literally. Well, COVID happened and everything like that too. So that also affected it. But after that, I said, okay, I kind of have the itch, because I've been reading so much fantasy in the last little while, to kind of go back to it. And so instead of writing a new chapter, what I did was I edited my first chapter, which is essentially my prelude for the book. And because this is the first draft and I've never edited it before, I had such a fun time, and it took me hours to do, but I'm now extremely happy and comfortable with that prelude, that at this point in time, I don't think I would change anything anymore. I'll have to pass it to some people afterwards and kind of get their feedback, but I'm really, really happy with it. It just flows now. Everything kind of makes sense. Before I definitely had a story beforehand, but it still felt a little bit bare bones because I wouldn't go into a lot of detail necessarily. I would put something specific that I would want, some kind of feel or a tone, and definitely the story would be moving forward. Anytime that the characters talked, I really went into that because that's my favorite part, is the dialogue between characters. I'm not as strong writing down like what's going on in detail, because that's one of the things that for me, when I'm reading, I kind of lose a lot of my attention when I'm reading a lot of detail about somebody explaining something about what's going on instead of reading the dialogue. Dialogue to me, I think just dialogue, they gravitate towards more a little bit, but you can really shine a lot more in the detail. Like the dialogue, you can only go so far. You can have an excellent written dialogue, and don't get me wrong, you can have that's where you can have some really nice jewels there, basically, of just like, oh, that sounded so incredible, what they're saying there, what the meaning is. But you can really flare it up with the detail of what's going on as well, without writing dialogue. So anyway, that's what I've been doing, and I'm very happy with that. We'll see how this goes going forward. I don't think that I want to be editing all the time, but it was very fun to do this past week. And yeah, we'll just see how that goes. And I think that what I'll try to do is edit everything until I get to, there's one point where I want to add an extra chapter in between what I've written so far, to add a little bit more to the characters and also what's going on in the story that so I haven't been writing in the past few years, but I've been writing, but I've been putting myself little notes of what I want to add in this specific book. And I would put what chapter I think that it would kind of flow into. So I do have a lot of notes to kind of go back on, which really helps. It's a long process. It's a nice hobby, but I definitely don't have nearly as much time to kind of dive right into it, because it kills a lot of the time that I have for reading. And I really want to read at the same time too. And that's just hobbies that don't have to do with anything else, like my social obligations, my regular obligations at the house, going to work, sleeping, eating right. You know, there's so many other things that we do every day. And I have too many hobbies. So we'll kind of see how that all goes. Anyway, thank you all for watching. You have been Bearded In, and we'll see you all next time. Beardage.